She was still alive when they lit the pyre. That is the detail that everything else comes from. A woman lying on a bed of pine branches while strangers changed her bandages for the 14th morning in a row. Her wounds had been healing on their own, overnight, since the day they found her. The wired woman of the tribe had finally said what everyone already feared. She had died. So they built the fire. They were trying to be kind. They were wrong about what they were doing. Take a slow breath. There is no hurry. We have the whole night. She was a Nedic tribeswoman. She served Arkay, the god who held the door between life and death, the keeper of the cycle that every mortal soul passes through. She was, by every account the law preserves, ordinary. That word will mean something different by the time we are done. What the nomads found, when they came upon her in the wilds of what would one day be Skyrim, was a woman in a state no person should survive. They did everything right. They took her in. They cleaned her wounds. They watched her day by day. And the thing that frightened them grew. Her injuries healed on their own. Not completely. They kept reopening. But enough. Something was wrong with the way she was dying. After 2 weeks, the weird woman pronounced her dead. They wrapped her in the customary cloth. They built the fire. They lit it. There is something buried in the geography of Skyrim that most people walk past without knowing. Certain fjords, certain winding coastal passages where the wind through the stone sounds like something that isn't wind. The lore has a name for it. The Shrieking Winds. We will reach that. And there is something at the center of what happened that night that I want to hold until we have earned it. Something that changes what everything before it means. The story will bring us there. Hold that. Everything else depends on understanding what Molag Bal actually is. Most Daedric princes have a sphere, a concept they embody and from which they derive their power. Azura holds the transitions between night and day. Meridia holds the light that separates the living from the undead. Hircine holds the hunt. Molag Bal holds domination, the wanton oppression and entrapment of mortal souls. Not conquest, not war, not death. Domination. Specifically, the act of breaking what a mortal is and remaking them into something that serves. His titles, recorded across different texts and different eras of Tamrielic history, give the shape of him. Harvester of souls, King of strife, Lord of corruption, Father of Coldharbour. Each one is a different face of the same hunger, the desire to take what belongs to someone else and make it permanently his. This matters because Molag Bal did not create vampirism as an accident or an experiment. He created it as an argument, a theological dispute, a point he wanted to make to another god. That other god was Arkay. Arkay governs the cycle of life and death, specifically the passage of souls from one state to the next. When a mortal dies, Arkay's domain holds sway. The soul moves, it travels toward what comes after. This is Arkay's sphere, and he holds it with certainty. No one who lives on Tamriel, no man, no mer, no creature of the deep forest escapes eventual death, and eventual death means eventual passage through Arkay's gate. Molag Bal found this intolerable, not because he feared death, because Arkay's confidence, the god's certainty that every soul would pass through his domain sooner or later, represented a limit on Molag Bal's own sphere. If every soul eventually becomes Arkay's, then Molag Bal's domination of mortals has an expiration date. Their suffering ends, they pass through, they are no longer his. The lore is plain on this point, preserved in the account that can be purchased from the archivist of the College of Winterhold right now. 3 pages, plainly titled, sitting on a shelf, among dozens of other books. Opusculus Lamae Bal Tamedsa Mortier. A brief account of Lamae Bal and the restless death. It begins with a sentence that works as well now as the day it was written. As brighter grows light, darker becomes shadow. What Molag Bal decided, in the time when Tamriel was still young and the Nades still walked its wilds, was that he would prove Arkay wrong. He would make a mortal that death could not claim. What happened next is a message written into the landscape of Skyrim, into the sound the wind makes in certain fjords on certain cold nights. The message was not meant for us. It was meant for Arkay. Understand first what Molag Bal is not. He is not a creature of darkness in the simple sense, not a shadow that dissolves in firelight, not a fear that runs from courage. He is patient, is architectural. His realm, Coldharbour, exists at one of the coldest points in oblivion, and it is not empty. It is vast and detailed and terrible in its organization. He builds things. He makes plans that span centuries. He appears to mortals in whatever form will be most persuasive, takes what he needs, and withdraws. When Molag Bal chose to make his argument against Arkay, he did not bring armies to Tamriel. He came as a man. He walked in the aspect of a mortal. He found a woman in the wilds of what would become Skyrim, young Nedic, a priestess of Arkay. She was, the account tells us, a virgin. She was devoted. What he did to her was brutal and without mercy. The text does not soften it, and neither will this telling. He attacked her and left her dying in the wild. And as he left, this is the detail, the specific detail that the law preserves. He shed a single drop of his blood onto her brow, and he left Nurn, having, as the account puts it, sown his wrath. Her screams at the moment he left her became the shrieking winds. Not metaphorically, not as a legend. The law records this as fact. Certain winding fjords of Skyrim still carry that sound. If you have walked the northern coasts at the wrong hour and heard something in the stone that doesn't match the weather, now you know what it is. That is the weight of what was put into the world that night. Sound, permanent, written into the rock. She was found comatose by the nomads. They did not know what had happened. They saw a woman who had been terribly hurt. They did what people do. They tried to help. They cared for her for 2 weeks. The healers did what they could. When she died, or when they thought she died, they prepared the pyre. There is something I want to set aside for a moment. Something I want to hold until we have earned it. It has to do with why Lamae Beolfag was the one chosen. Why her, and not another? The answer is in the law, confirmed in what the account preserves. And when it arrives, it will change what everything before it means. Hold on to that. Before we return to the pyre, we need to stand for a panasam, moment in the place where Molag Bal went after he left Tamriel. Because the world he built is the world every vampire who has ever lived will eventually reach. It is the destination. It is the architecture of what Molag Bal is. Coldharbour is a realm of oblivion, a plane separate from the mortal world, existing in the chaos of the void beyond Nirn. Most Daedric realms reflect the nature of their ruler. The Shivering Isles shift and contradict themselves as their ruler does. The hunting grounds extend in every direction with no visible horizon, as the hunt does. Coldharbour is an image of Tamriel. Specifically, it is what Tamriel would look like if all warmth and color and hope were drained from it and left to collapse. The geography is familiar. The sky burns. The ground is cold sludge and ash. The colors that remain are muted, bruised. The colors of things that have not been touched by sunlight in a very long time. Where Tamriel has roads, Coldharbour has roads that lead nowhere useful. Where Tamriel has cities, Coldharbour has cities in ruins. There is a palace in Coldharbour that resembles the white gold tower of Cyrodiil, and it is used as a prison. Molag Bal built it this way deliberately. It is a mockery, not of Tamriel in the abstract, of every specific beautiful thing in Tamriel, made cold and broken and his. But some parts of Coldharbour are not copies. They are originals. The lore records that Molag Bal, through the ages, has physically ripped pieces of Tamriel from the mortal world and dragged them into oblivion. An Argonian village called Haj Uxith exists inside Coldharbour right now. Pulled from Black Marsh and imprisoned there, its hist tree kept alive by a corrupted crystal that slowly poisons it. Ships from a naval fleet that sailed into a portal in the First Era and never returned can be found rotting in Coldharbour's dead waters. The Village of the Lost is a human settlement, shattered into floating pieces, connected now by Daedric portals instead of roads. These are not legends. These are documented locations. And Coldharbour's population is not merely Daedra. Most of its inhabitants are what the lore calls soul-shriven, mortals whose souls belong to Molag Bal, whose bodies are animated now by Daedric residue in the shape of what they were. They cannot die in any permanent sense. They work. They are used as labor, as amusement, as subjects for practices the lore does not need to name. Over time, the soul-shriven lose the ability to remember who they were. The ones who have been there longest become feral, consuming everything near them, including each other. Coldharbour is not endless darkness. It is endless cold detail. There is a detail about how Molag Bal's mace came to exist that belongs in this place. The mace of Molag Bal, the artifact that the Daedric prince still gifts to mortal champions in the present day of the lore, including the era of Skyrim, was not forged in Daedric's fire. It was not hammered out by ancient powers. According to the records preserved in the lore of the artifact, Molag Bal found an orcish blacksmith. The accounts are plain on this. Molag Bal tricked him, convinced him to travel to Coldharbour, perhaps through promises, perhaps through deception. The exact method varies in different sources. What all sources agree on is what came next. The blacksmith arrived. Molag Bal enslaved him, turned him into a soul-shriven, and forced him to forge the mace. His soul is still there. Inside the weapon his own hands made, as a slave, at the command of a god who broke him to make a point about power. That soul trap enchantment on the mace, the one that seizes the soul of whoever the mace strikes and holds it for collection, is not a coincidence. It is a philosophy. Every swing of the weapon does exactly what Molag Bal does. It takes something that was free and makes it a possession. The orcish blacksmith never asked for any of this. Neither did the woman still burning somewhere in the wilds of early Skyrim. They lit the fire at night. The nomads had done everything correctly. They had followed their rites, spoken their words over the body, wrapped it in the customary manner. What the weird woman could not have known, what no one could have known, was that the single drop of blood left on Lamae Beolfag's brow was not a wound. It was a mechanism. It was Molag Bal's answer to Arkay's cycle, a mortal whose death had been interrupted at the moment of departure, not saved from death, held between. The fire lit. Lamae rose from it. She rose while still burning. The lore preserves this still alight. And she fell upon the nomads who had cared for her for 2 weeks. The people who had done nothing but try to help her. The account in the archives does not spare detail here, and this telling will not either, because what the lore records is important. What Molag Bal had put into Lamae was not simply a hunger. It was a mirror of what had been done to her. The act she committed against the nomads reflected, with terrible symmetry, what Molag Bal had done to her. She was not responsible for that symmetry. She did not design it. He did. He built that reflection into what she was, in the same casual, architectural way he builds everything. When it was over, she walked away from the burning camp and began to spread. The lore calls the creatures that came from her, and from them the further generations, the first vampires. The brood of Lamae Beolfag. She is their blood matron, their origin point, the first node in a family tree that runs through all of recorded history. She was not chosen. Let that settle for a moment. The account, the Opusculus Lamae Bal ta Mezzamortir, available in the library of the College of Winterhold, available to anyone who asks, records the reason Molag Bal came to Tamriel that night. It was not because of Lamae Beolfag. It was because of Arkay. Molag Bal looked upon the god of death's certainty, Arkay's confidence that every mortal soul would eventually pass through his domain, and decided to prove him wrong. He came to Tamriel and he found a priestess of Arkay, a virgin devoted to the god. Any priestess of Arkay would have served his purpose. Any faithful servant of the god would have been sufficient. She mattered because of what she believed, not because of who she was. This means that everything about Lamae Beolfag, her name, her history, whatever she loved before the wilds of Skyrim, whatever she had hoped for, the years of faith she had given to the god whose sphere was the safe passage of souls, none of it was relevant to Molag Bal. He saw the mark of Arkay's service on her, and he saw a wound he could make. She was a point he was making in a conversation between gods that she had no part in and no knowledge of. She was a message. She did not know she was a message. And now consider what that means for every vampire who has come after her, every creature in the lineage of the blood matron, every being who woke on a funeral pyre or in a crypt or in Coldharbour with the thirst already burning. They are all, in some sense, descendants of a message, a contemptuous gesture, an argument Molag Bal was making to a god who had offended him. What Lamae Beolfag does with that, what she builds in the years after the pyre, what she refuses, what she becomes, is the part of this lore that carries the most weight. Go back to the nomads who were trying to help. They did not know what they were lighting. They thought they were honoring her death. What they were actually doing was fulfilling the last condition Molag Bal had set before he left. The fire that would complete the transformation, the heat that would drive the Daedric blood fully into what she was becoming. They thought they were giving her peace. They were giving her to him. The thing that makes this specific kind of grief different from ordinary tragedy is the absence of malice in the people on the wrong side of it. The nomads were innocent. Arkay had given them no warning. The weird woman who declared Lamae dead was doing her job. The ones who built the fire loved their dead and wanted to honor them. There is a word for this in the lore's own framing, though the lore does not use it. Instrument. Lamae was made into an instrument of a god she had never served, against a god she had served faithfully, by a mechanism she never consented to and could not have anticipated. And when she came back to herself, after the camp, after the burning, after the first terrible hours of being what she now was, she did what anyone would do. She prayed. She prayed to Arkay. From the pyre, still burning, she asked him to help her. He did not come. The lore records this without commentary. The records of Lamae's crypt, the underground sanctuary where her cult gathered in the years after. Preserve this moment as the second wound. The first wound was what Molag Bal did. The second wound was the silence that followed her prayer. She waited for Arkay. He did not answer. She waited. Nothing. The records say she became embittered by both of them equally. By Molag Bal, who had used her, and by Arkay, who had abandoned her. And then she did something that the law holds as remarkable, something that separates her from the common thread of victims who become instruments of the thing that hurt them. She refused both of them. Lamae Beolfag founded a cult. Its core tenet, documented in the records of her crypt, was hatred, not of one god, not of the thing that had been done to her, but of two gods equally. Molag Bal for what he made her, Arkay for what he allowed. Her children, the vampires who found their way to her crypt and underwent the rites she designed, were taught to curse both names with equal force. She was not Molag Bal's creature. She was not Arkay's martyr. She was something the law did not have a category for. A being who had been used as a weapon against a god and had turned not toward the nearest available master, but into the space between. Her cult called her Mother Lamae. Her children called themselves her brood. Their strength, the records note, came not from the conventional feeding that other vampire lineages use, but from consuming blood in a way that compounds. Each feeding making them stronger in a direction Molag Bal could not fully predict or control. She altered the bloodline, deliberately. She was not merely a vampire. She was a vampire who had spent centuries making herself into something that could not be fully claimed by the thing that made her. This is the shape of what Molag Bal's contempt created. A being with more hatred for him than any mortal hero, living in a crypt in the world he tried to corrupt, teaching her children to despise him. The irony is not lost on the law. The account of her crypt refers to Molag Bal in her ceremonies as the father of torment and the king of corruption. These are not worship. These are accusations. Her rites include a profanation of his symbol and a profanation of Arkay's symbol, side by side. She split her fury perfectly in two. In the present era of Skyrim, a vigilant of Stendarr named Tyrannus is standing outside an abandoned house in the city of Markarth. The house troubles him. It has been abandoned for a long time. The neighbors do not speak about it in specific ways. They speak around it, the way people speak around things that have no good words. Tyrannus has heard that strange sounds emerge from it at odd hours. He suspects Daedric influence. He is a witch hunter by calling, a man trained specifically to find and neutralize places like this. He is correct. The house contains a shrine to Molag Bal in its basement, and Molag Bal is present in it. What the recorded history of that house makes plain is this. When the Keet, Dragonborn, enters with Tyrannus, Molag Bal traps them both inside and forces a confrontation. Tyrannus, who came to cleanse the place of Daedric corruption, dies in the room where the corruption lives. The reason Molag Bal haunts this specific building, this specific corner of a human city, is plain from what the history of that place preserves. There was once a priest of Boethia who desecrated Molag Bal's shrine. Not a great insult in the scheme of cosmic events. A single priest, a single act of defacement, in a single abandoned house. And Molag Bal has been waiting, the lore implies, for a very long time, for someone to help him settle it. This is the thing about Molag Bal that the House of Horrors makes visible. The thing that the grand scale of his mythology can obscure. He does not forget small debts. His sphere is domination, and domination is not only the sweeping conquest of whole civilizations, it is also the insistence that every violation of his claim be answered, every soul that escaped him, every shrine that was touched without permission, every mortal who passed through his influence and did not remain properly his. The abandoned house in Markarth is small. Molag Bal's patience for it is not. The mace he bestows on his new champion, the mace of Molag Bal, restored from the rusted, diminished state in which it waited in that abandoned basement, returned to its full artifact power when his debt is finally settled. drains magicka and stamina from whoever it strikes. It traps the soul of whoever it kills. The enchantment is elegant in the way that arguments are elegant when someone has had centuries to compose them. The blacksmith who made it, still in Coldharbour, is still making it. Over and over, in the way that soul-shriven exist, endlessly, without the ability to fully die, without the ability to fully remember who they were before. The mace is still being made. It has always just been made. It will always just be made. Return to the pyre one more time. It is night. The fire is high. The nomads stand back from the heat, their faces lit, their hands clasped, doing the thing that people do for their dead when there is nothing else to do. They are trying to be kind. The woman in the fire has been with them for 2 weeks, a stranger they found and chose to care for. They do not know her name. They do not know what was done to her or why or who she had been before the wilds of Skyrim. They know she died, and they want to honor that. The fire is the kindest thing they have, and she rises from it, not healed, not peaceful, not returned to what she was. She rises as the first of something new, something that did not exist in the world 30 seconds ago, something that will exist in the world for the rest of recorded history. Her screams when Molag Bal left her became the sound the wind still makes in certain fjords of Skyrim, the sound that hikers and travelers stop walking to listen to and cannot explain. That sound is the last thing she was before she became what she became. The lore calls her blood matron. Her children call her mother. Molag Bal calls her, in the implied theology of his domain, a successful argument. Arkay did not answer. That is the thing to carry forward from here. Not the horror of what Molag Bal is, not the vastness of Coldharbour, or the centuries of the soul-shriven, or the cold architectural patience of a Daedric prince who haunts abandoned houses in mortal cities, because he has not forgotten a small slight. Those things are real, and they matter. But the thing that lives in the center of this story, the thing that the lore of Lamae's crypt preserves with a particular kind of weight, is simpler. She asked for help. She asked the god she had served faithfully all her life, from the worst moment of that life, and she got nothing. And then she decided that the silence was also an answer, not the one she wanted, but one she could work with. If you lie still for a moment, in the warmth of wherever you are, and think about what it means to be made into something you never consented to be abandoned by the side you had chosen, and then to survive it anyway. There is a human truth in the shape of that. The absence of rescue. The refusal to choose either of the available bad options. The long work of becoming something that belongs to no one. Lamae Beolfag did not become her own person after what happened to her. The lore makes clear she became something strange and frightening and hard to love. But she became her own. The blood she carries, the curse she altered, the children she made, are hers, not Molag Bal's. He made the first step, and she made the rest. The fjords still carry her sound. In the right winds, in the winding stone passages of the northern coasts, that sound is still there. The lore says so. Walk in the right direction on a cold night, and you will hear the world still holding what it witnessed. If this story has been worth staying awake for, you will know why that matters now. If you feel moved to stay with this channel, to be here for the next story, a single subscription is the kindest thing you can leave behind on your way to sleep. Close your eyes now. Somewhere in Skyrim, the wind moves through stone and makes a sound that has no good explanation. Let it be the last thing tonight.